Power crisis in Africa.
What is a power crisis? A power crisis is defined as any great shortage or lack of energy supply in a region. The energy supply includes utilities such as electricity, gasoline, natural gas, and other sources of energy used to power homes, businesses, etc. Some characteristics of a power crisis include chronic blackouts, inefficient energy supplies, and unstable energy output.
Overview of situation in Africa. In Africa, the major energy crisis targets are electricity and gas. 747 million Africans still use firewood and dung to cook their meals and do not have access to electricity. Governments sit helpless, unable to effectively provide electricity and gas. In turn, the people and businesses face blackouts and power failures frequently, sometimes waiting days for power to return. The region with the most severe energy crisis is Sub-Saharan Africa. Excluding South Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa produces only 24% of Africa's energy but has more than 80% of the African population living in it. In 2007 alone, nearly two-thirds of the countries in this region experienced energy crisis with frequent and extended electricity outages. A closer view into Africa's power crisis. In Senegal, blackouts occur literally every day in the summer because government facilities cannot afford to power its diesel-fired generators. In some countries like South Africa, governments shut down generators for periods of time because of maintenance problems. Such power shortages are common in Africa. The energy crisis in Africa affects many households. Recent studies show that households in countries like Tanzania, Uganda, and Madagascar still get more than 90% of their energy from biomass such as dung and firewood. Biomass is unclean and is the major cause of indoor pollution and respiratory diseases in sub-Saharan areas. Even in areas like South Africa, which have electricity and gas stoves in many areas, more than 50% of the household energy is from biomass. The reason for that is because African utilities are unreliable and often shut down. The energy crisis not only affects households but also businesses. In Accra, Ghana, the Prime Pack canning factory suddenly came to a halt when a blackout occurred. 30% of the products spoiled. Power shortages make steady output of businesses almost impossible. Even businesses that have turned to purchasing private power generators cannot afford fuel to power them. In 2006, Uganda's businesses lost almost an estimated $250 million due to power shortages. The energy crisis in Africa ruins economies with unstable or lack of energy.
Why is this happening? The power crisis in Africa has many causes. The biggest contributors are Africa's population growth, high oil prices, poor planning, drought, and wars. Africa's population is gaining steadily at a rate of 2.5% per year. At this rate, Africa's population is expected to double in 28 years. Governments cannot keep up with such population growth in providing energy to growing numbers of households. Uganda, one of the biggest producers of hydroelectricity, was exporting surplus electricity to neighboring countries. Now it cannot provide electricity to even half of its population. Diesel and gasoline are the most common fuels for generators in African countries. With crude oil prices running at $75 a barrel, countries like Senegal, Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Madagascar pay twice as much as they have done before to import the same amount of oil. Due to the Great Oil Shock, governments cannot bring electricity to homes and businesses, leaving a broken economy behind. Countries like Uganda and Kenya depend hugely on hydroelectric power, but due to droughts, water levels have dropped as much as half an inch per day in 2006. Uganda now produces only one-third of its installed hydroelectric capacity due to Lake Victoria's decreasing water levels. Poor planning of energy networks have caused some electricity suppliers to get only 60% of energy they generate. In South Africa, some power plants generate only 40% of their installed capacity due to poor maintenance. In Nigeria, only 19 of 79 power plants are operable, but this is all too probable because most African power plants and transmission facilities were built in the 1950s and 60s. Wars also play a part in the power crisis. In Sierra Leone and Liberia, wars and internal conflicts have left power lines and infrastructure damaged. Liberia estimates that it will cost $107 million to repair such costs.
Efforts being made. Many efforts are being made to stop the power crisis in Africa. First, many governments are looking towards using renewable sources as a source of power, such as wind and solar energy. For example, Ghana plans to build a hydroelectric dam on the Black Volta River, and Namibia has started to research wind patterns in its coastal borders to build wind generators. By such efforts, governments and private businesses are making investment in energy a priority. Second, international pacts such as the West African Power Pool and New Partnership for Africa's Development are being made to interconnect and develop power supplies between nations. Based on such projects, nations like South Africa transport power to rural and undeveloped areas.
Third, governments are attempting to renovate and upgrade many power plants. Nigeria has turned to privatizing many of its power plants, which in turn improves the maintenance and conditions of much of the equipment. Such newly made private companies and government energy corporations now encourage the use of energy-saving fluorescent bulbs and insulated water heaters. Although the fluctuating energy markets and slow developments prevent advances in energy from being made, Africa looks to a new future of a developed and electrified nation.